Welcome to the Henry Hatter Show. I am Henry Hatter, your host, and welcome to Genesee County, the eye of the storm that will turn this state red. Welcome, Representative Phil Green. Thank you for agreeing to come on the Henry Hatter Show. Please introduce yourself and tell us about your background, your professional career, and your other parts of you that's interesting to our audience.
Great. Thank you, Henry. I appreciate the invite to be on your show. I grew up in a small town just to the north of here in Mayville, just outside of Mayville on an 80-acre farm. My dad, my grandpa, my two uncles all worked for General Motors. My dad worked here at the V8 engine plant, and so very well familiar. And in fact, he grew up over just north of Davison, over off of Irish and Maple Roads. And so it's exciting to be here in the city of Flint with you. But I grew up there out in the country, and in 1995, I graduated high school and I went to college down in Pensacola, Florida to be a pastor. And for 20 years, I was full time in the ministry, a youth pastor in Wisconsin, a senior pastor out in New York. And then I moved back home in 2012 after my mom had a health issue. And I became a Christian school administrator and assistant pastor at Juniata Baptist. And then in 2018, a position opened up to run for state representative. And I decided that that was just another avenue for me to be able to serve my community. And I have been a state rep for the last 6 years, 2019 till now. My first 4 years, I represented Huron and Tuscola County in the Thumb. And then in 2020, with redistricting 2022 election, I have 4 townships in Genesee County. I have 8 townships in Lapeer County and the 1 township that I live in Tuscola County.
Then you have the city of Flint as well, don't you?
I come right up to the border of the city of Flint. So I have Genesee Township, which is right, what half a mile from where we're sitting right now.
Yes. So, Representative Green, we have a number of questions that were extracted from people who live in the area. They range in age group from teenagers to 65 years old
Okay.
or older. And they sent these questions in, very curious about who you are and what you represent. And I will read some of these questions to you, and you will respond. And some of them might be kind of tough questions and might be risky, but I know that you will do well because the audience is looking for a good common sense and fair disposition.
Great.
The first question is by Abigail. From your perspective, why is the country so divided in all aspects?
Well, I think over the course of time, when we have individuals that are allowed to express their opinion, we find out that people don't always agree on things. And right now is a very divided time. Every 4 years, we have a presidential election. Every 4 years, on the offside is a governor's election, and people are doing their best to make sure that their opinions are heard and seen. And that's one of the cool things about our form of government is that we are allowed to express our opinion. I am deeply concerned about the divide in the country. However, I'm also reminded that there have been times in the history of our country that has been more divided. We actually fought a civil war. And then there was a time at the very birthing of our country where we were breaking from the mother country. And so conflict is not bad. Division is not bad as long as we remember that we can be normal human beings and interact with each other, that we can take care of our communities, take care of our neighbors, regardless of our political leanings.
You know, I'm not so concerned about division because our country has a balance of power between the legislature, the president, and the courts. And you will see occasionally how Republicans transfer over to become Democrats. We had 18 senators that transferred into the Democratic Party to assure that we make sure that our system is well balanced for the fear of government takeover.
Correct.
Yes.
You know,
Do you agree?
and that's one of the cool things about our system of government is that our founders set it up where we represent people.
Yes.
And so as we go through an election process, we are constantly saying, here's who we are as a society, and we are sending those people to represent us. And sometimes, regardless of their political opinion, sometimes we find out that some of the Republicans maybe don't represent the Republican area as well, and maybe a Democrat. And we're not just pigeonholed into this is the way it is. Other countries, they don't vote for people. Other Israel, they don't vote for people. They walk in and they write down the name of the party and they put that in the ballot box. And then from there, people somewhere else decide who is going to represent them in its only party. But we have people who represent us and our voices.
Then I would say that you probably believe, as I do, that we live in the best of all possibilities where government is used to care for the community and the nation.
Absolutely. My opinion is no government is perfect, but I have friends that are missionaries in Ireland, missionaries in Ukraine, my sister's a missionary in South Africa. I can't think of a better place that I would rather live than here in the United States of America.
I couldn't live anywhere else in the world. This is my home. I was born here. My parents were born here, and they died here. My grandparents were born here. And I probably will too. I don't plan to leave here. Others can go, but I'm here forever.
Yeah, wherever the good Lord plants us, right?
Yes. Now, the next question is from Taiwan. Why do a particular segment of white American people recoil when they hear the word DEI, which means diversity, equity,
Yep.
and inclusion?
I think people in general, and I'm coming from my pastoral background, people in general are comfortable with what they know. And when they are being stretched, that is another component. When I look at that aspect of DEI, I think one of the things that I struggle with personally is I believe America is a place where we earn we earn our voice, we earn our positions, and so thus when we see the DEI, what we perceive happening is here's an individual that because of some political program, they're going to be handed a position regardless of their education, regardless of their accomplishments. And that component, when you're looking at what is best for a society, that makes I guess, some of my folks, some white people recoil because what we want is we want the best person, the most educated, the person who's uh, done what he is supposed to do to get a position, not just somebody to get a position because of the color of their skin or because of their gender or because of their gender expression. And so I think that would probably be the best way that I would answer that.
And I think that most Americans believe that. I think that people of color and Black Americans believe the same thing.
Wasn't it Martin Luther who said that I have a dream that we're judged by the content of our character?
It was Martin Luther. Well, thank you. That was a great question and a great response. Now, the next question is here. Why do the words cancel culture and critical race theory irritate some middle class moms more than they do the norm?
Yeah, so we have this group of individuals that we start to think a little bit more of ourselves than what we ought. I think the Bible calls it pride. That we start to think that our opinion matters more, and so thus, if you disagree with me, you must be wrong. And so our culture has developed this program where if you're wrong, then you need to be canceled. You need to be quieted. Your opinion can't go forward. And so this cancel culture, instead of allowing a free flow of ideas, instead of allowing people to make their point, and maybe it's different than yours and mine, it has really caused some people who can't figure out how to function in society a little bit of angst. And so, because they might be losing an argument, what they do is they just say, fine, we're going to turn your camera off. We're going to turn your mic off. We're going to turn your social media off because I can't beat your opinion. So, therefore, I'm just going to cancel it.
Sounds good. But I think over time, people do evolve. They do learn.
Yes.
They do change. They do transform. They become something else over time.
And that comes from that free flow of ideas where we as a society can discuss our differences, and allow another individual to grow.
Okay. Now, we have, here's a question. Who coined and defined these terms, um, cancel culture, without everybody being at the table? And what does it mean? What does cancel culture mean? Because I'm not sure everybody understands it.
Yeah. I don't know who coined it. I'm probably going to say somebody with a big mouth that had an audience that they just started calling it this and it moved forward. But I think probably the definition is canceling somebody's opinion, somebody's voice if you disagree with them. And and I think that the first part is who coined it, and then the second part of it is what do they mean and how do they what do they mean?
Yes.
And I think the cancel culture is just we like to live in our own echo chamber. We like people to, and we think everybody thinks just like us. And therefore, if we are challenged, instead of being able to win a debate, win an argument by the content of truth or of facts and figures, we just figure out a way to cancel the other person and cancel their voice.
Yes. And, it's kind of interesting because I think that um, all people don't agree with that concept. And
Correct.
that's a good thing. That's why we're Americans. And I might add this point here. Americans are becoming, instead of like it was in the beginning when the founding fathers founded this country, we are becoming a pluralistic nation.
Yes.
And nature is doing it for us. It's not by selection. It's nature's doing
Yeah, so in that pluralistic society, meaning we have individuals from different nationalities, and they're bringing their culture, they're bringing their traditions in, and we're finding some really cool components. Like I said, I have a sister who's a missionary in South Africa. I have friends in Uganda and all over the place, all over the world. And when they bring some of their cool aspects of their society, and our society just sort of morphs around it. It's really a neat neighborhood.
Yes. Now here's a question. I'm speeding this up so that we can get through the question. Uh, now, if state representatives represent the interest of people in their own respective districts, how then do they find the sensitivity and compassion to support those whose issues fall through the cracks and don't
Yeah.
look like them?
So I think as a state representative, one of the things that's important is that you represent your people, that you make sure you're taking the voice of them. And when we look at our community, I represent 90,000 people, ranging from Genesee County to Lapeer County up into Tuscola. And so one of my goals and one of my plans has been to get into every community. We do that through knocking doors. We do that through different office hours. We do that from different events in the district. And so then we build those relationships, and relationships take time to build. And so that's a little bit of what we try to do as a state rep.
Well, the follow-up question is, what is the state reps' collective role or responsibility to respond to people who don't share the same community or who don't look like them? There's a collective responsibility that somehow the state is responsible for all the people.
Yes. And so the collective responsibility of the state rep is to listen. And then when we act on what is being said. So therefore, when we live in a society of respect, I don't care what color a person is. I don't care what color their hair is. I don't care what type of clothes they wear. We can deal respectfully with each other. We can bring our issues to each other. And then once, as a representative, I understand that these are the issues that are happening, then I can go back and try to figure out a way to solve that problem if it's the government's role.
Yes. This is from Emily. Former President Trump invaded areas of the Black community that had been previously believed to be reserved to Black Americans, Democrats, and independents, um, such as churches, barbershops, and fast food establishments. Do you see this as a movement that could bring Black Americans into the mainstream and change the character of the society?
Yeah, I think one of the things we are seeing on the presidential run, the presidential race, is that there is an acknowledgement that the black voices matter, and that reality is regardless of the color of the skin. Obviously, Donald Trump grew up a little bit differently than I did. Grew up a little bit maybe more affluent, and he made some business decisions different. But when we start seeing that outreach and that change that he is growing, I think it helps us to realize that we can start talking about some issues that our society maybe for the longest time has sort of put on the back burner.
Okay, then if the Black vote is so valuable in the Black community, why is it considered by the not considered the margin of victory? And or better put, why don't this segment of the voting public never cite uh, or move as moving the needle? Why don't Black Americans move the needle? Why, if they are a big part of a voting bloc, why
Yeah.
aren't the needle moved?
And you'll have to forgive me. I don't know what the exact percentage is of that voting block, but many times we're looking at, from a political standpoint, in a political campaign, you're looking at, okay, this group of 10% of society, okay, um, how much work do I have to do to get them to move to my vote? And will they? And so, therefore, over the course of time, there have been certain segments of society that have been written off by both sides.
Okay.
And then now, what we're finding is um, some of these groups of people that have been, subdivided politically. We're finding that, hey, look, maybe they're not as dyed in the wool for a certain political persuasion. Maybe it's possible that we actually agree more than what we disagree. And so I think that politicians are realizing that we can have personal connections.
Yes, but it's predicted that more than 15% of Black American males will leave the Democrat Party and transfer in the Republican Party. If that happens, that'll begin the process where they can move the needle
Correct.
as the margin of difference. And that's where every uh, faction, and we're all factions in the United States, and factions are good because they keep one single faction from overdoing the other. Right?
Correct. Correct.
That was Madison's thought, and
Yeah. So, when we look at the issues inside of like the black male,
yeah.
or we look at issues inside of maybe the whole society of the black vote, that's where we can start looking at and saying, okay, look, these voices matter, and they're able to start moving that needle and making their voice more valuable and getting that more attention.
Okay. Thank you. Now, here's a question from Rudy. How should we talk about race? Some critics say that it's better left alone. Well, what's your thought?
I think there are certain things that races obviously have different components. Uh, White people have different health issues many times than some of the black people, than some of the Asian people. Black people have different health issues, sickle cell anemia, that type of stuff that are unique to their race. But then I think it as well when we realize that uh, that race doesn't have to divide us. Yes, we may have different colors of skin, but the race doesn't have to divide us, that we agree on more things. Then we can say, "Hey, look, we've built a relationship, now we can have those discussions."
How do you respond to someone that says, well, I don't see race, but every piece of knowledge that we learn that comes into our head is come through the senses. And the eyes will never lie to you. The, the eyes will say, that tree is green. And you might, well, I don't see green.
I don't see green,
But
yeah.
the eyes always tell you.
Yeah. And I think that is one of the struggles we have as a society is that we don't look at the color of the skin. We look at the
Yeah.
content of the argument. We look at the content of the character. And so when we say I don't see color, I think what some are trying to say is that's not the most important thing. The color of
Yes.
the skin is not the most important thing. The color. Let's talk about the problems we need to solve. Let's talk about our community, and let's not inject this and that becomes a football that we fight over.
Yes. Now, here is a question coming from Ian. Ian asked, define civility and why is civility so important in today's time?
Yeah. So I grew up in a time where we didn't care what our neighbor's political persuasion was. If we needed a cup of sugar to finish up chocolate chip cookies, or a stick of butter, we'd hop on our bike and my parents would send us up to the neighbor's house. And we'd take care of each other. When we were out of town, we could call the neighbor, say, "Hey, look, watch our place." And that concept of civility where we put aside, or maybe we don't even care about our differences, but we can be and I want my kids, this is how I say it. I want my kids to be normal human beings, that they just interact, that they deal respectfully with people, that they don't automatically fly off the handle and are constantly fighting. I want to be normal human beings, and to me, civility is that concept of just be a normal human being.
Well, we need more of that today. We've lost it. Many people say that we've lost civility. If you're in your car and you're driving down the road and you happen to put in the lane and the guy comes behind you and he gives you the thumb, or he comes as close to your trunk as he can possibly get with a big wheel truck.
Yeah,
That's a sign of civility, and it sometimes these lead to bad consequences.
they do, and I think we realize our human nature, our sin nature is quick to anger, and there are times where we have to teach ourselves, no, 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 I'm not going to fight that battle. No, 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 I'm not going to get angry over this. And that's part of growing and maturing and being more civil.
Yes. Okay, here's this question is from Alexis. What are the three most important issues in your district according to a survey that you might have taken? Are these issues likely to be similar to those in the Black community?
So I'll give you a quick story.
Mhm.
In 2019, I went into the legislature. A good friend of mine, his name's Adam Hollier. Adam was a brand new senator, and he's from Detroit. And he actually just decided to run for Congress this last election. But Adam said to me, he said, "Phil, I want you to understand something. The needs in rural Michigan are the exact same needs in urban Michigan. But somehow we're fighting with each other over something stupid, usually over politics, and we're not dealing with the needs of both of our people." So some of the needs of the district as a whole, of course, Genesee Township and Thetford and Richfield and Forest and all the way over into Lapeer, we're dealing with infrastructure issues. Our roads are falling apart. We're dealing with the cost of housing. And we're dealing with, when I say infrastructure, we're dealing with water, we're dealing with sewer, we're dealing with water in some of, where it's getting a little bit more publicity now, but some of the trailer parks, the water situation is deplorable. But then you get over into Metamora, which is also part of my district, and we're dealing with a Superfund site that's infecting the wells, that making water undrinkable. We're dealing with infrastructure such as the not even the cost, but the availability of high speed internet. And so we're dealing with some major things. And then how do we pay for fire departments? How do we pay for police departments? How do we pay for the services that our communities need? And so I don't think that is a black issue versus a white issue, a rural versus a urban, but I think these are issues that our people are really dealing with.
And I think that many people believe that whatever works well in your community works well in the other community because people have common needs, and they have to do with um, how to take care of the home life, how to take care of health issues, how to make money, how to take care of kids, and how to provide for kids, and so on and so forth. Now, this question is from Ross. How should Republicans address abortion? Since the right to life is a staple in the platform of the Republican Party, is there a way to define or find a compromise in a country that's divided by gender and the lack of civility?
So obviously, we're dealing with multiple things, right? With that, we're looking at a specific issue that brings in multiple components, whether it's political, religious beliefs, or legal issues. So the Republicans at this point, obviously, the Roe v. Wade fell under the Supreme Court. They reconsidered Roe v. Wade and said that is a state issue. Michigan is a state that has voted in 2022 through ballot initiative to enshrine it in the Constitution that there's a constitutional right to abortion. Um, and so I think legally we look at that and say, look, the people of the state of Michigan spoke on that topic, and that is the law of the land. Me personally, as a former pastor, I struggle because I look at it and I say that even in the embryonic stages, a human being is a human being, and I don't like people taking the life of an individual either as a baby or as an old person, abortion or euthanasia. I don't think it's right that we take the life of another individual.
I-
Um,
Is that position likely to change despair that women are having regarding their own bodies?
yeah, so
How do we correct that? Now, you got two laws in conflict with each other. You got a state law that says women may have abortions, but you have a federal law that says it's prohibited. Somewhere, no state law may ever supersede a federal law.
I do not believe there's a. I could be wrong. I'm not aware of a federal law that says that it is illegal. There are individuals who are pushing for a federal end to abortion, but I don't believe there is currently a federal ban on abortion. What had happened in the Supreme Court is they said it's not the federal government's right
Responsibility.
responsibility to legislate that under the 10th amendment of the constitution is a states rights issue, and the states should be making that decision.
Why do we have this struggle in the Supreme Court about abortion? If it's not a federal, we see
Yeah.
it's confusing because
it, so
the federal.
some of it is political, Henry. Some of it is political. So we have a group of people that want this, and so we're going to figure out a way to get it, and then that becomes sort of a dividing point in campaigns to say, here's this person, he believes this way, and this person believes that way. And so um sometimes politicians create division.
I got to get to these two questions here. I see some that I'm going to have to look over here. Here's one, and this is by James. Out of the 25 industrialized nation of the world, the United States is ranked 15th behind Singapore, North Korea, India, Japan, Germany, etc.
Hmm.
What should the United States be doing to reestablish dominance in education that will also involve Black Americans?
Yeah, so the dominance in education and as well as the government's involvement in manufacturing and industrialization. And so what we really need to look at is what does each individual community need. Having the federal government tell the city of Flint how they're supposed to educate their kids, that's a way huge overstep. Let the city of Flint decide. Let the parents decide how to educate their kids, and then um, releasing some of the onerous regulations. I'm not talking about pollution. I'm not talking about clean water, clean air, but trying to figure out a way to make it so that businesses can do business in Michigan and in the country would go a long way just to keep the government out.
Okay, Phil, our time is just about come to the end. You've been a great commenter, and I'm sure that the people out there have listened to everything that you've had to say, and they will be giving us feedback. But I'm going to give you 30 seconds to kind of summarize, and what would you like to tell Black Americans or the people in this district why they should vote for Phil Green.
Well, obviously, I think I'm the most qualified candidate, but as well on the aspect of voting. But I think as we look at our society, as we look at where we are headed as a society, I think there's good days ahead. I think there's an opportunity for us to move forward and to heal our country and get rid of some of the divisiveness. If I can be of any help, any service to you, please reach out. Please reach out to my office on the web or through email or phone, and I'd love to meet with you individually at a restaurant of your choice.
That's kind of the comment that people in this community want to hear. Someone else who can discuss their issues that they may be having and sensitive enough to do that. Thank you, Phil. We got to leave it there. And you've been a great commenter. You've been a great Republican, and this is only the beginning. The Republican, in an effort to reach out to Black Americans more closely, uh, will occur in multiple times in the future. We thank you so much for your comments, for your presence.
Thank you, Henry.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay.